Everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the greats of each weight class in the UFC. We're going to be talking about the GSPs, the Jon Joneses, the Stipes, all of them. And I'm going to ask the question, are they still the GOATs of their respective divisions? Or were they dethroned by a Kamaru Usman? Or in case of like an Aljamain, Dominic Cruz in that situation? I don't think anybody has dethroned Jon Jones. In that case, for somebody that is still the GOAT of their division, I have to give a scenario where somebody could dethrone him. So what would somebody have to do to dethrone Jon Jones as the light heavyweight GOAT? So in that scenario, that's going to be pretty challenging. I hope I can think something up before we get to that part of the video. But before we begin, a subscribe, a like means a lot for the channel. I believe at the time of posting this, we will have 1,000 subscribers. We're about like 198 right now, so I'm going to assume we're at 1K right now. And that's all thanks to you guys. And if you want to continue supporting the channel, subscribe, like, you know the drill. With that out of the way, let's get started. The first division that we're going to talk about is the flyweight division. I still believe the best flyweight to ever live is Demetrious Johnson. And frankly, I don't even believe it's close. If you want to have a good chuckle, look up all the records for the flyweight division. Who has the most submissions? Who has the most control time, most strikes, most title defenses? You'll find that almost all of them, Demetrious Johnson is in that picture. He's either number 1, number 2, or number 3. There's almost none of those where he is number 4. For that reason, he's still the GOAT of flyweight. But on top of all that, just a little crazy stat for you guys. If you took every flyweight champion that has ever been in that weight class, they're Davidson Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno, and Pantoja. Put them all together, take all their title defenses, and you stack that up to the title run of Demetrious Johnson, it still wouldn't equal the amount of title defenses that Demetrious Johnson had at his height. So, for that reason, he is still the GOAT. And if I had to come up with a scenario for somebody to dethrone him, at bare minimum, you have to tie his title defenses. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon because Demetrious Johnson was considerably active. I know he has that loss to Henry Cejudo, but I mean, like, for being a champion at a lighter weight class, he was extremely active for the time, and even now, he would still be considered active. So I don't know how somebody would be able to do that. Do I think somebody that is currently in the UFC is going to be able to do that? No, I don't think a Pantoja is going to tie the flyweight record of title defenses. I just don't think that's anywhere near close happening. So for that reason, I believe Demetrious Johnson still reigns over the flyweight division. The next division that we're going to be talking about is the Bantamweight division. Now, this one's pretty difficult because the two people that are regarded as the greats of this division is Dominic Cruz in his prime and Aljamain Sterling. So the reason that Aljamain is even in the running is he did tie the bantamweight title defense record right before he fought Hassan O'Malley. It really is kind of messed up if you think about it, that O'Malley really did stop the hype of Aljamain. Aljamain Sterling was one title defense away from being regarded as the Bantamweight GOAT. I mean, it's 3 title defenses. It's not a big number, and Aljamain was going on his 4th. Now, did he surpass Dominic Cruz by getting 3? I'm going to give you the argument for that and the argument against it, and you tell me in the comments because I'm conflicted on it. Aljamain Sterling, although he did tie the bantamweight record, 2 of those title defenses were against veterans who were coming back, and this was their first or second fight back. TJ Dillashaw had 1 arm and survived the first round against Aljamain Sterling. Yes, he did fight Corey Sandhagen, but that's not a good fight to come back to. And when you're fighting with 1 arm and you make it through the first round with the champion, that's a tough win to swallow. Then we got Henry Cejudo. If Henry Cejudo ends up beating Merab Dvalishvili, then that fight that he had with Aljamain looks really good for Aljamain. But that was his first fight back. I would rather a Henry Cejudo have like a warm-up fight, then he gets to fight for the title so we know what his level is at. But if, for example, Henry Cejudo comes back and loses to Merab, that makes Aljamain's GOAT debate weaker. And then we have Petr Yan. He wins the fight. He wins the belt by a DQ. Whatever. That was a bad look for a long time, but I think he avenged himself when he beat Petr Yan in the rematch. But Petr Yan is on a losing streak, though. Like, he got worked by Merab. So that's the problem. So do we take Aljamain, but then we talk about Dominic Cruz, who, yes, has 3 title defenses at Bantamweight, but he did it against the last generation of fighters. Lost to Cody Garbrandt, who got worked by TJ Dillashaw. So I'm conflicted on this. I think you still have to go with Dominic Cruz, just because there isn't that asterisk attached to it, like, well, this was their first fight back. So I think Dominic Cruz is still the Bantamweight GOAT for now. And what somebody would have to do is they have to beat the title defense record. That's all you have to do. As crazy as it sounds, if O'Malley is able to rack up 4 title defenses, he's the GOAT. Or Merab, the GOAT. Like, it really is that easy for Bantamweight. I mean, I say easy, it's still extremely difficult. But that's what you would have to do to become the GOAT of that division. Next division is going to be featherweight. Now, to this day, who is regarded as the GOAT of featherweight is still Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo was undefeated for, I believe it was either 13 or 14 years. But what needs to be added to that is those 14 years were not all served in the octagon. They were not all served in the UFC. He fought high-level talent outside of the organization 100%. He fought Uriah Faber outside of the organization, who was a high-level fighter back then. But if it was any other fighter than the fighter I'm about to name, Jose Aldo is still the GOAT. But it's Alexander Volkanovski. Alexander Volkanovski, I believe, surpassed Jose Aldo when he beat Max Holloway for the 3rd time. The fact is the debate really isn't who is the best featherweight of all time, because I believe that is now Alexander Volkanovski. Now the debate is who's better, Jose Aldo in his prime or Max Holloway? Because Max Holloway, in my mind, at the end of his career is going to be regarded as the 2nd best featherweight to ever live. Because he beat Jose Aldo multiple times, but lost to Volkanovski multiple times. So the argument is, like, you almost have to resort to MMA math here, because Volkanovski never got the chance to fight Aldo, but I believe Volkanovski would beat Aldo because of his performance against Holloway. So it's a tough argument to make, but Volkanovski is doing what Jose Aldo was able to do at featherweight in this modern generation of featherweight, which is better than it's ever been. So for that reason, Volkanovski is the GOAT of featherweight. And since he beat Jose Aldo, I don't have to make an argument over somebody beating him, because he already beat the past GOAT. Now we're going to be talking about lightweight. Now I'm going to make some people mad. So, I don't believe Khabib Nurmagomedov. It's either Khabib or Islam, okay? I'm not committed yet. But the thing I will say is I believe Islam at the end of his career is going to be better than Khabib Nurmagomedov. Because Islam Makhachev, as much as I'll clown on him here and there, Islam Makhachev takes the hardest matchups he can. Now, yes, he fought Bobby Green, short notice fight. Yeah, he fought Dan Hooker, but Dan Hooker was inconsistent. But he beat Charles Oliveira, who many, including myself, thought that stylistically Charles was going to get it done. Beat Volkanovski 2 times. One of those was on short notice, but the other one, he goes to Australia to fight him, and you do earn some respect doing that. So, he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the UFC, and I know Khabib's had that and retired with it, but Khabib fought strikers who were decent at wrestling. He never fought great wrestlers who were decent at striking. Because at that time, lightweight was dominated by high-level strikers, not high-level wrestlers. He was a high-level wrestler in a division of strikers. And 9 times out of 10, a wrestler will be a striker at that high level. So, I'm not saying all of his fights, but I would say most of Khabib's fights during his reign were stylistically in favor of him, where Islam, although he doesn't have the same amount of title defenses, which is not saying much, he has fought stylistic nightmares for himself, like Volkanovski and Charles Oliveira. So I do believe Islam Makhachev, if he isn't above Khabib already, is going to be by the end of his career. And for that reason, I'm going to say Islam Makhachev, right now, is the best lightweight. Our next division is going to be welterweight. Now, this is where my bias is going to come out because I am a lifelong GSP fan. So, the two fighters that are in the running is GSP and Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman was able to rack up a good amount of title defenses, didn't beat the title defenses of GSP, but I believe was able to beat his undefeated streak. Which, it's extremely impressive. Like, that's the thing. Like, Kamaru Usman is, at the very least, the second best welterweight to ever live. But GSP beat his generation of fighters. No, he beat the last generation of fighters coming up. His generation of fighters during his title defenses. Loses to Matt Serra, and then beats the next generation of welterweights. Goes up after 3 years and beats Michael Bisping, which I know Michael Bisping is regarded as one of the weaker middleweight champions, but it's still a win after 3 years. We give credit to John Jones for that. We need to give credit to GSP for that. So, it's kind of not fair for Kamaru Usman because Kamaru Usman is being compared to who is arguably the GOAT of MMA. Like, GSP, at the very least, is the second best MMA fighter to ever live. So, it's a hard argument to make. Kamaru Usman, if he was able to beat Leon Edwards, I believe would have had a far stronger argument to be made. And his plan is he wanted to beat Leon Edwards and defend the belt against either Shavkat Rakhmonov or Khamzat Chimaev and then go up. If he wanted to go up to 205, I thought that was stupid, but that's a debate for a different time. If he would have been able to beat Leon and beat Shavkat, I think he would have been above a GSP, or at the very least at that same level. But for that reason, GSP is still reigning, and if you want to beat him, you at the very least have to do everything that Kamaru Usman did, but 2 more wins. I know that sounds harsh, but that is the situation you are in fighting at the welterweight division, trying to become the best of that division. Do I think anybody at that division is going to be able to do it? Maybe Shavkat. Shavkat's the only dude at welterweight that I would say it could do it. And I'm eager to see if he's able to do it in the future. But with that out of the way, let's get to the next division, and that's going to be middleweight. The best middleweight of all time is Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, at the peak of his powers, was the boogeyman. Bro came into every fight like it was an execution. Like, he was toying with the people that he was fighting to the point that Dana White himself had to get on Anderson Silva for almost ruining main events. Now, is it a little bit harsh? Yeah, but I get it from Dana White's point of view. The problem with Anderson Silva, and I don't know how much I'm going to hold this against him, is after the Chris Weidman leg break, he was never the same. And he fought for too long. Like, the ending of his career is one of the saddest downfalls in MMA history, up there with like a Tony Ferguson. But he's still, in my mind, the best middleweight to ever live. And I almost feel like the leg break almost gives him that excuse to say where, well, if I never broke my leg, I would still be defending the belt. Which is getting speculatory, but you can make that argument. And I would say Anderson Silva still is the best middleweight. Israel Adesanya's number 2. And again, it really is kind of crazy how many fighters from this generation, like your Kamaru Usmans and Israels, that were really 1 to 2 fights away from overtaking their predecessors. If Israel was... Here's the thing. When Israel lost to Alex Pereira and came back and won in the rematch, I forgave that. Like, oh, okay, if he's able to get 2 more title defenses, then he's better than Anderson Silva. But when you lose to Alex Pereira, lose to Son Strickland, you're out of the debate. I'm sorry. Like, he's stuck in that number 2 spot unless he comes back and racks up another 3 title defenses, 3 to 4. And I don't think that's going to happen, especially with him saying he's not going to return until 2027. Anderson Silva's still the best. Now, the next fighter that we're going to be talking about is going to be the Jon Jones of the light heavyweight division. And I don't believe there's ever going to be a fighter that beats Jon Jones. I think it's going to be a situation where, like, I almost feel bad for the people that become champions of light heavyweight, because how do you even compare to Jon? Like, how are you going to overtake Jon? Like, the thing is we as an MMA fan base have completely overlooked the PED history of Jon Jones. Like, we'll say, it's like, oh yeah, he busted for juice a few times. He busted for juice more than any other UFC fighter. He's cheated in fights more than any other UFC fighter, and that doesn't hurt his argument for being the GOAT. I don't know what will. So you can try to deny it, but the fact is Jon Jones is the best light heavyweight to ever live, and I don't think there'll ever be a fighter that's able to do it. And if you are going to be able to do it, so what you would have to do is you would have to have an identical run to Jon Jones, which is already difficult enough in this modern generation of MMA, but you'd have to do it clean. And we can debate all we want over how clean the competition that Jon Jones was compared to him, but juice 100% helps with recovery, and that's going to be the problem. You just aren't going to be able to bounce back like that. And no, there is no fighter at light heavyweight now, or is looking to go into light heavyweight, that I believe is going to overtake Jon Jones. And that's why Jon Jones is still the king of light heavyweight. Now to our final division, heavyweight. The heavyweight GOAT regarded by just about everybody is Stipe Miocic. And I'll spoil this one really quick. Stipe is still the GOAT of heavyweight. The only other person you can make the argument for would be a Daniel Cormier, but Stipe beat Daniel Cormier, so that's the problem that we have. So if you beat the dude who's second in line in his prime while you're in his prime, then you're better. It's as simple as that. But beating out Stipe for the GOAT debate is very easy relative to other champions on this list. All you have to do is just tie the title defense record of Stipe, which really, like, it's not that hard compared to other divisions. It's similar to a bantamweight situation. You just need 4 to beat it. And yes, I do believe there's going to be a fighter in that division that will break it fairly soon, and I believe that's going to be Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones, if he beats Stipe, is not the heavyweight GOAT, because, like, we can make arguments over who deserves to fight for the title more, Stipe or Tom. But understand, if you try to argue to me that Stipe is in his prime, you're just an idiot. I'm sorry. Tom Aspinall just needs 4 title defenses. I think he gets it. I think he beats Cyril Gane. He beat Sergey Pavlovich, who I thought was going to beat him. He beats Almeida fairly easily. I genuinely, I don't know who beats Tom Aspinall outside of a freak KO blow, which does happen. But I think he rules over heavyweight for at least 5 title defenses. Stipe is still the GOAT, but I believe Tom is coming. And I think that's going to be it for the video. And if you enjoy this content, please consider a like and subscribe. We just reached 1,000 subscribers. Thank you all for that. And with that out of the way, adios, guys.